Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, welcome back to another Witch Wednesday, and today I am doing another of my Witch TV series relationship timelines. This time we are looking at Taranee and Nigel, and I'm really hoping we can cover this relationship in one video because there is far less content for the two of them than there was for either Cornelia and Caleb or Will and Matt. But we'll see. We all know that brevity is no friend of mine, but I do think we can get this done in one video. I have 8 pages of a script, so we will see. But as always, let's start by taking a look at the characters in this relationship. So in one corner we have Taranee Cook. She is 12 years old at the start of the series and lives with her father, brother and mother. Her mother is a court judge, and this will become important later on. Taranee is smart, studious, she cares deeply about her schoolwork and her grades. She can also be shy and nervous and has a number of fears, including heights, bugs, and ironically her own element of fire. But she grows and becomes more confident as the series goes on and learns to conquer her fears. In the other corner, we have Nigel Ashcroft. Nigel is a cool guy who is best friends with Will's boyfriend Matt and is a guitarist in their band Rec 55. However, he's also friends with the school's resident bad boy Uriah Dunn and has a habit of getting roped into his schemes. Whilst Taranee is obedient and her worst fear is failing at school, Nigel is less concerned with following the rules and would rather just have fun. Despite these polar opposite values, Taranee and Nigel get along like a house on fire. Pun intended. That said, I do definitely have thoughts on the way that this relationship is written in the show, and this will not be as positive a review as the previous two, and it's a shame because we know that the Witch writers can craft a really beautiful relationship arc. They've done it with Cornelia and Caleb and Will and Matt. They created really beautiful, deep love stories that have layers and complexity and obstacles to overcome and are just really, really lovely to watch, and in my opinion give a really good example of what love should be to the young viewers. But this isn't that. But with that out of the way, get a snack, make yourself comfortable, and buckle in for some hot takes on the relationship between Taranee and Nigel. The introduction to Taranee and Nigel's relationship is odd, to say the least. The first time that we ever hear Nigel's name in the entire series is in episode 16 of season 1, Walk This Way. Prior to this, the only time that we ever see Nigel is in the very first episode when he's sitting with Uriah, Kurt and Clubber, although according to the rest of the series, Nigel didn't become friends with Uriah until the summer holiday between H is for Hunted and K is for Knowledge. So I guess we're just supposed to pretend that we didn't see that. Nigel wasn't there, or maybe, like, you know, maybe Matt was off sick that day and Nigel just needed someone to stand with. I don't know. Sure enough, whenever we see Uriah and his friends throughout season 1, Nigel is never with them. We see them in Happy Birthday Will, and he's not there. Anytime that they appear during the first season, Nigel is not part of the group, so I guess that was just something that they added in the first episode and then decided to take back out, and we're all just supposed to pretend we didn't see it. We just didn't. It didn't happen, we didn't see it. I pretend I do not see it. In this episode though, the school dance is coming up and the girls are discussing getting dates, which prompts Taranee to say,
"Big news! I kinda almost nearly have a date."
That's great! Who's the kinda almost nearly lucky guy?
Nigel finally figured out he likes me.
This is utterly bizarre since we've never seen this pair interact, nor have we even heard Taranee say that she likes Nigel, or that she even knows Nigel. It's all a bit odd. Like, we don't know this guy from Adam. Like, we've never met Nigel officially prior to this in the show, and then Taranee just suddenly decides that Nigel finally figured out that he likes her, a guy that we've never met and don't actually know Taranee's feelings on at all. And that's what I find really odd about this, is that it's the wording. Nigel finally figured out he likes me. It's like, what do you mean finally? We've never met this guy. As far as we're concerned, you've never met this guy. What do you mean he finally figured out he likes you? How does he even know you? You're not even in the same year. He's a year above you as far as we know. He's in the same year as Matt, I think. But whatever. Anyway, this is how we're introduced to the two of them. No meet cute, just this. And then at the end of the episode, Nigel is on stage playing guitar and Taranee watches him looking awestruck, and that's it. That's the start of the relationship. No meet cute, no build up, nothing to tell us why either of these characters are into each other, just this. I scream. It annoys me so much. Now, I realise, obviously, back in the Will and Matt video, I talked about how Will and Matt also had a really terrible introduction to the relationship, which was literally just Matt walking out of Irma's house at the birthday party, taking Will's hand and walking with her into the party, even though we'd never met him before and we didn't know that he was Matt. And you wouldn't even recognise him being Matt because he looks completely different to his comic book counterpart. Despite that, they went on to have a really beautiful relationship. You just have to kind of ignore the fact that the introduction to the relationship was really bad. Unfortunately, Taranee and Nigel's relationship doesn't really get any better. The way that it starts is kind of how they mean to go on, which is a real shame. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's discuss.
Matt and Nigel sound great, don't they?
Awesome.
So, technically, we don't get any more Taranee and Nigel content until about halfway through season 2. Jais for Jewel specifically. Now, technically there isn't actually any Taranee and Nigel content in this episode, but there's clearly supposed to be. At one point during the episode, all 5 girls are on a conference call from their various vacation spots. Cornelia says that she's having a fantastic time in Paris, but one thing is missing. At which point Cornelia says Caleb, Will says Matt, and Taranee says nothing.
The only thing missing is Caleb. Boys?
There's no voiced line from Taranee here, at least not in English. But she is included on the split screen, so presumably she's supposed to be saying Nigel, but she doesn't. Let me know in the comments below if you're watching an alternate dub, and tell me if Taranee says anything here, because in English there is no line there. I have tried so hard, I've listened so many times to see if maybe it's just really faint, or maybe it's just really blending in with the others, but no, it's simply not there, there is no line. So we get the impression from this scene though that Taranee must still be in a relationship. The other two are talking about their boyfriends, and Halen follows this up by saying you lot are all like concerned with your next date, meaning that Taranee must have a boyfriend at this point in time, and considering the only person that's ever been referenced is Nigel, we can assume that it's Nigel. And this is confirmed when we finally see Nigel in person in the next episode, again almost halfway through season 2. And honestly, even I was surprised while writing this script when I realised that he had been in so few episodes and hadn't actually appeared at any point after Walk This Way, all the way through until K is for Knowledge. I genuinely thought he had more episodes than this. But no. It's strange because in my head, at one point I actually thought he was in A is for Anonymous, and then I realised I was confusing the beginning of A is for Anonymous with the beginning of K is for Knowledge. And actually, I think it would have made a lot more sense for him to be in A is for Anonymous, considering it was an episode about Taranee and an episode about her identity and how she feels about herself and how she feels like she's like in the background, that she's anonymous. But Nigel isn't in that episode. And he doesn't appear in any of the other episodes after that until K, which I just find really bizarre, but there we go. Anyway. Yeah, according to the lore of the series, he asks Taranee to the dance and Walk This Way and then straight up disappears for 20 episodes. Okay then. At least there is a lot of content in this particular episode to look at. This is definitely the most Taranee and Nigel heavy episode of the entire series. So, when Taranee and her mum pull up outside the school, Taranee waves to Nigel. Teresa, Taranee's mother, asks if Nigel is the boy you went to the dance with, which cracks me up because that was presumably almost a year ago at this point. Like, we're assuming that that was maybe like September, October time of the previous year, and we're talking maybe August of the following year. So we're looking at least 10 months since that happened. And Teresa's like, is that the boy you went to the dance with? And which just implies that absolutely nothing has happened between Taranee and Nigel in the time between when they went to the dance a year ago and now, which is hilarious. Just so funny because exactly nothing has happened in that time, but apparently even off screen nothing has happened between Walk This Way and Gaze for Knowledge. But anyway, whatever.
Taranee!
Isn't that the boy you went to the dance with? So, that's why you're so excited to be back at school.
Taranee heads into the schoolyard where she bumps into Uriah and his goons who decide to be complete dicks to her, naturally. But thankfully for her, Nigel steps in to help.
Watch it, nerd bait. Here you go.
Thanks.
Knock it off, Uriah.
Oh, it's you. Thanks, Nigel.
Sorry about that. Uriah isn't always a punk. Once in a while, he's fun to hang with.
Since when do you hang with a creep like Uriah Dunn?
Since everyone else was gone this summer, Heatherfield's not exactly on the A-list. But now that you're back, my options look a whole lot sweeter. And if you're not doing anything tonight, there's a sweet band playing at the club.
Then I guess I am doing something.
Sweet. I'll see you at 8.
The bell! My glasses!
So we see here that the show is trying to tie in with the comics and make Nigel uneasy friends with Uriah, despite the fact that he was hanging out with them in episode 1, but never mind that didn't happen apparently. But Nigel's very sweet and he helps Taranee collect her things and holds her hand and asks her if she wants to go and see a band at the club with him, which is nice, you know, that's very cute. At lunchtime, Taranee tells Will that Nigel asked her out.
Hey, Taranee, aren't you eating?
Can't. Have to find my glasses. If I hadn't already outlined the first 3 chapters of all my textbooks, I'd be totally lost. Besides, I need them before tonight. Nigel asked me to the club.
Don't even think about it.
And she's clearly excited about it, so, you know, that's sweet. That's lovely. Taranee heads outside to search for her glasses, where she once again encounters Uriah and his goons, but this time, however, Nigel is with them.
Hey, Nige, I think we found your date for prom. Hold still, club.
Taranee! Sweet. Come look. Hey, Uriah, toss me that.
Nigel? What are you doing?
Ambush makeover?
Oh, that's so... Wait, what are you doing to old man Sheffield?
You wasted my lipstick on that?
Dude, chill.
Cover, you don't!
Oh my goodness!
So Nigel is defacing the statue along with Uriah, Kurt and Clubber, and then he draws a love heart with his and Taranee's initials inside, which is cute and all, although again, I feel like we've missed the part where they're an actual couple. You know, he's drawing a love heart. Love hearts generally, you know, imply love, and I've seen none of it so far, but okay. I'm really sorry, you're gonna have to listen to me do this for the entire video because I have such issues with the way this is written. You're gonna have to listen to me do. I'm so sorry if you really ship Taranee and Nigel in the show because you're gonna hate listening to this video. I'm so sorry. For a second, Taranee thinks this is very sweet until she realises that the graffiti is in the statue of Old Man Sheffield, and since she is a chronic good girl, a pathological people pleaser who only wanted you to see her, this isn't her style. But before she even gets a second to comment on it or really question what Nigel's doing or voice her thoughts on it in any way, she bumps into Clubber and causes Uriah to fall, breaking the statue in the process. After school, Taranee is in the principal's office with her mother and Principal Knickerbocker. We then see Teresa leading Taranee out of the school by the arm, passing by Uriah's crew and Nigel, who are out cleaning the statue. Nigel smiles at Taranee as she passes by.
We are so lucky the principal believed you weren't involved in the incident.
Involved in it? I couldn't even see it. I just hope Knickerbocker goes easy on Nigel.
I don't want you seeing Nigel.
What? Nigel's a good guy. Trust me.
I don't trust him.
And your judgment is clearly suspect. He was tagging your initials.
Mom!
Case closed.
We see here that Teresa doesn't want Taranee associating with Nigel anymore, and I can understand why. Taranee asserts that Nigel is a good guy, but Teresa really doesn't have any reason to believe her. And it's not as if Nigel was an unwilling participant in the whole thing. He was tagging their initials, as Teresa says, and by the way she sees it, being around Nigel is just going to get Taranee in trouble. And this is one of the things I find really interesting about this, and interesting in a bad way. So, Nigel in the comics, right from the beginning, was always considered to be a good guy, but who happened to be friends with the wrong people. He was always the one who told Uriah that his plans were silly or dangerous or just not good. Right in the very first issue, Uriah wants to put fireworks inside the pumpkin at the Halloween party, which causes a massive explosion, and Nigel's the one who tells him that that's not a good idea. Even in the chapter books, there's a line somewhere, I'm pretty sure from Cornelia's perspective, where she mentions about Uriah, Kurt, and Laurent, because his name is Laurent and rather than Clubber in the comics. And she mentions how Nigel is a sweet guy and he isn't actually like a problem the way that Uriah and the others are, that Nigel is a decent guy. Which is why none of her friends, like, none of Taranee's friends have an issue with her dating Nigel, because as far as they're concerned, he's a perfectly nice guy, he just happens to hang around with the bad guy. But at this point in the story, for some reason, Nigel is, like, a fully willing participant in Uriah's schemes, which isn't how he was written in the comic at all, usually. So, really odd, and the weird thing is, after this, we never see him with Uriah again. In fact, when we do see the two of them together in Essence for Self, Nigel basically insults Uriah to his face, and yeah, for some reason their friendship basically lasts this one episode and then is never brought up again. Very odd. And I'm not saying that it's unrealistic that Nigel could be a bit of a rebel, that maybe he doesn't like school and he doesn't really care about cutting classes and stuff. Of course he could be like that. It's just kind of odd writing, in my opinion. Anyway, later that evening, Taranee is getting ready for her date with Nigel to go to the club, and outside her bedroom door, she hears her mother speaking with her father.
Lionel, the boy's a delinquent. If Taranee can't see that, then how can we trust her judgment?
You want untrustworthy? You got it.
Taranee clearly feels that if her mother refuses to trust her, why should she bother trying to behave? She's in trouble for something she didn't have any part in. She hadn't encouraged Nigel to tag their initials, and she'd only just wandered up, and as she said earlier, she couldn't even see it, you know? She didn't have her glasses on, she couldn't even see what Nigel and the boys were doing because she was almost blind at the point. And yet still, her mother is blaming her for the situation. And I can get this, because I had times like this as a teenager too. Like Taranee, I was a perpetual do-gooder. My worst fear was getting into trouble, ever being seen as being a bad person, you know? I always followed the rules, like, to a fault. I tried my best to always be, you know, literally as perfect as possible, usually to my own detriment. And as a result, when I did get in trouble for things that weren't my fault, or I was only vaguely associated with something that, you know, my friends or my classmates had done, I got really angry and upset about it. It made me wonder why I bothered trying so hard to be good and follow the rules if I was just going to get in trouble anyway for things that I can't control. It's frustrating, and I can understand why Taranee feels like this, because ultimately her association with Nigel doesn't make her a bad person. And also, as far as she's concerned, Nigel himself isn't a bad person. At the club, which I assume is some kind of under 16s place, considering Taranee is only 13 at this point in time, and I'm pretty sure Nigel is only like 14, so, you know, the fact that they're at the club is kind of hilarious, but whatever. I mean, we had one of them where I live, but it was like a Christian thing, so like a Christian youth club. Maybe it's one of them, maybe it's a Christian youth club. Nigel and Uriah's crew are queued up outside, and Uriah starts making fun of Taranee to Nigel, and Nigel defends her.
Can't believe you're ditching us for the Queen of Nerds.
Oh, Nigel, you can't have any friends. That might actually lead to fun, and fun will only take time away from your studies.
You don't even know her. And give me those. Come on.
But all four guys are shocked when Taranee turns up with a very different look to what they are used to.
Ah, sweet. Ronnie?
My mom says you're a bad influence. Like I need any help being bad.
Dude, if it doesn't work out, can I have her number?
Taranee has clearly decided that she wants to be a bad girl to fit in with Nigel and to piss off her mother. But it just feels so out of place. Taranee is not a bad girl in the slightest. I don't think she has a bad bone in her body. A fiery temper, maybe, but nothing that could be considered bad. Don't get me wrong, like, she looks rad as hell, but it feels like she's in cosplay. It's interesting though, because Taranee's struggle with identity is something that comes up more than once in this season. As I mentioned in A's for Anonymous, the whole episode basically focuses around her worrying that she's going to lose her identity if she's not a guardian anymore. That being a guardian made her feel like she was someone, and then without it, she feels like no one again. And here, she's obviously struggling with her identity for a second time. She now feels like she's always got to be the perfect child, the good girl, and she worries that that is making her a no one, and that if she wants to be a someone, then she needs to change, she needs to be bad, she needs to be more rebellious. Taranee clearly has issues surrounding her identity, and that's something that is true both in and out of her relationship with Nigel. Uriah certainly changed his tune though, and I suppose it is helpful to both her and Nigel if his friends, you know, don't treat her like dirt. Like, that's probably for the best for everyone. Sadly, we don't get to see much of Taranee and Nigel's date because the club ends up getting hit by lightning and the power cuts off, causing everyone to be evacuated.
You look really different! What? I said you look different!
All right, stay calm, everyone. Lightning just hit the building. We're closing up. No refunds.
Lightning on a clear night?
Maybe we can go somewhere and talk. Taranee? Taranee!
You too, kid. Let's go.
But my girl!
Taranee correctly deduces that it's unlikely there would be a lightning with no storm on a clear night, and wanders off to await the arrival of Nerissa. I do find Nigel referring to Taranee as my girl really sweet, although the fact that he talks like a 90s surfer dude always just makes me laugh more than anything. He is so incredibly dated as a character. Even in 2004, this was dated. Poor Nigel. Nerissa shows up and the girls fight her, and Taranee reveals her pink hair is a wash-in, wash-out dye, and her contacts melt from the heat of her firepower, so her outfit is really falling apart. Once the battle is over, Taranee heads home, and her mother is not pleased.
We'll talk about trust in the morning, but grounded? That doesn't begin to cover it.
Luckily for Taranee though, Nigel appears on the balcony.
Hey, I was worried. I couldn't find you outside the club.
That's okay. You found me now.
Sorry I got you into trouble again. Your mom sounded pretty mad.
That's her problem. I'm sick of always being the good girl, the smart one, the perfect child.
I don't know. The sweet thing is, that's kind of what I like about you. Glasses and all.
Sweet.
So we see here what's really bugging Taranee, and like I said, it's kind of similar to her issue from A's for Anonymous. She has it in her head that her role is just the good girl or the smart one. She wants to be known for something more interesting than that. She doesn't want to just be the perfect child. But what she doesn't realise is that being the good girl and the smart one and the perfect child is exactly what Nigel finds interesting about her. That's what drew him to her in the first place. He doesn't want her to be something else. He likes her just the way she is, glasses and all. And then he kisses her, which is adorable. And once he's gone, we see Taranee smile as she can finally accept herself just the way she is, knowing that she doesn't have to be a bad girl to be interesting or attractive. She can just be Taranee. And I do really like the message of this episode. The fact that Taranee feels like she has to change for a boy and then discovers that actually he liked her the way she was before and that she never needed to change for him. And that there's nothing wrong with being the good girl. And it kind of makes sense because if Nigel is this kind of rebellious bad boy, it makes sense that he might be more attracted to someone that in some ways he admires for being studious and being good, for being what he can't be. She sort of admires the fact that he doesn't feel restricted by rules the way that she does, but he obviously thinks that actually the fact that she does care about the rules and that she does care about her studies and that she tries really hard in life is admirable in its own way. And it is, you know, working hard at school and being good at your studies is admirable. And I think it's really nice. I would have maybe liked that to be explored slightly more in the episodes. It does, I think, feel a bit rushed at the end, but we can take the idea of what they're trying to say. Nigel isn't in the following episode, but Taranee mentions him a few times as she's still reeling from the events of K's for Knowledge, and this actually plays into the overall plot of the episodes. So at the start, we drop in on Will and Taranee in the middle of a conversation about Nigel.
Well, you going out?
He knows my mom threatened permanent grounding if we saw each other again. I'm not sure who I'm madder at. My mom for keeping us apart or him for cooperating.
Yeah, darn those considerate guys.
We found out here that Taranee's mother has forbidden her from seeing Nigel again with the threat of permanent grounding if she disobeys, and that Nigel has agreed to this. Thus, for now, the pair can't really be together. They're in limbo. It either is or isn't a relationship. It's Schrodinger's relationship. That said, later in the episodes when Irma tries to get the girls to work at the radio station with her, Taranee says,
Sorry, I've got big plans to be permanently grounded very soon.
which may suggest that she intends to go against her mother's wishes and just face the consequences. After all, even if she isn't allowed out of the house to socialise, she still has to attend school, which is where Nigel also attends. So you'd think that they would see each other regardless of what her mum says. At lunch, we see Taranee sitting like a golem on her lunch chair, staring into the distance with a sappy look in her face, so we can assume that she's probably gazing at Nigel. And then, in what is presumably the next day, even though they're all wearing the same clothes, Taranee is angry at her mother again.
My mother is ruining my life.
Caught you talking to Nigel again?
And confiscated my cell phone.
Which reminds me.
We find out that despite her mother's demands, Taranee has been speaking to Nigel over the phone, and as a result, Teresa has confiscated her mobile. After school, the girls take a shortcut home through a construction yard, totally sensible, no questions here, and encounter Nerissa's new minions, the Knights of Destruction. Each knight feeds on a particular negative emotion, and for Cor, it's anger, and Taranee is full of anger right now.
Back off, glacier face!
Back in the Silver Dragon basement, Cornelia points this out to Taranee.
And Taranee,
I can't beat Fuzzy if I'm mad at my mom.
just try to keep it in check.
The other knights really taunt the other girls, Tridart towards Haylin, Ember towards Irma, and Shagon towards Will, but we don't get the same kind of taunting from Cor towards Taranee, considering, you know, he's mute, he's literally made out of a dormouse and can't speak. But Cor does continue to feed on her emotions throughout this episode. Ultimately, though, the girls manage to remain grande zen and beat the knights. And that's really it for this episode. We next see Nigel in episode 16, P is for Protectors. Taranee and Nigel are having dinner at a sushi restaurant together.
so Mom's a judge. It's not like she can throw you in jail for seeing me. I hope.
I just don't want to get you in trouble again.
Nigel, we're eating sushi. What could possibly go wrong?
Taranee has clearly never watched TV in her life because as soon as you say what could possibly go wrong, something inevitably goes wrong. And sure enough, it does. The two most iconic villains of the entire show, Jerry and Leslie, show up to rob the restaurant.
Nobody move! This is a stick-up!
Jerry, your mask.
Whoops. Oh, sorry, Leslie.
Don't say my name.
Empty the register. Or else.
Or else what?
Trust me, you don't want to know.
No, I don't.
Dude, the money first, then you can faint. Dude?
That's right, officer. A male and a female. Princess Sushi on 4th.
You! Glasses! Who are you talking to?
Stay away from her!
Oh! Man, why'd the sprinklers go off?
Maybe it's all those brain cells they're burning? How do you open this stupid thing?
I know how.
Taranee?
My mom says to always cooperate. But I'm through listening to Mom.
Hey! Give me that!
Give Leslie back her ski mask!
Jerry, will you stop using my name?
If old Les needs her mask so badly, let's give her yours!
Oh!
Let's go!
What is going on here? The call said robbery, not food fight.
The cops. Sweet.
Arrest them, officer! They're fish thieves! What? Look at them! They've got ski masks!
These aren't ours. We've been framed.
We'll sort this out downtown.
What's that smell?
This whole scene is just priceless. Like, why does this exist? It's so random. I mean, we've got Jerry and Leslie, who just have so much character despite only being in the episode for like 5 minutes. There's sushi and fish flying everywhere. It's just such a random scene. And like the fact that like they're mugging the place in the first, like they're coming in, they're robbing the place in ski masks and everything. The fact that this is in a kid's show in the first place is just really bizarre. But anyway, it's there. We see Nigel defending Taranee, followed by him being shocked that she's confronting one of the robbers. Of course, he only knows Taranee as a girl who's obsessed with homework and not the bad bitch superhero who can flambe you alive. Nigel and Taranee start fighting the robbers until the police show up, but good old Leslie tries to frame Taranee and Nigel because they are holding the ski masks, so all 4 of them end up getting arrested. And down at the police station, Teresa Cook is on the warpath.
I knew this boy was bad news. He lures you out against my wishes and drags you into a life of crime. My little girl is a perp. Oh no, what if I have to sentence my own daughter?
Honestly, everything Teresa says here cracks me up. You know, drags you into a life of crime. My daughter's a perp. Because they had a scuffle in a sushi bar. Like, what? But she has to eat her words when the truth is revealed.
No charges, Judge. We have the owner's statement. Turns out Taranee and Nigel were just innocent bystanders. Good Samaritans, actually. They tried to help.
Oh. I've made a horrible mistake. All I ever wanted was to protect you, keep you safe. But I'm very sorry, really. Nigel, you too.
You think sorry makes this okay? Bad enough you never even gave Nigel a chance. But how could you think that with the mask and the fish, I can't even talk to you.
Taranee.
With the mask and the fish? Literally one of my favorite lines. Probably my favorite Taranee line of the entire series. With the mask and the fish. So what we see here is that Teresa Cook still doesn't trust either Taranee or Nigel, but she's placing the blame on Nigel in particular. She says that he lured Taranee out against her wishes, that he dragged her into a life of crime. It apparently doesn't occur to her that Taranee is capable of original thought and can actually do things of her own free will. And that if she wants to spend time with Nigel, that's up to her. He can't force her to do that. But once she realizes that neither of them were actually involved and that really they were trying to stop the robbers, she apologizes to both Taranee and Nigel for her error in judgment. And Nigel actually looks really happy to have had a sincere apology from her after, having spent so long with her treating him like shit. But Taranee is less impressed. She doesn't really care that Teresa is sorry for what she believed happened. It doesn't change the fact that she believed it in the first place. Taranee storms off and goes to join the girls in the Silver Dragon basement, where they decide to go to Zambala and find Kadma. Taranee is in a real mood for the rest of the episode and becomes reckless because of it. She also has a particular distaste for the way that Kadma is acting because it clearly reminds her of her mother. Distrusting, controlling, argumentative, unable to accept when she's wrong. But in the end, Taranee gets her to see sense and restores the forest to its former glory. Although she's still sour about the fact that Kadma simply won't admit her mistakes or apologise for them, which, according to Yan Lin, is just the way Kadma has always been. And that maybe made Taranee realise that at the very least, Teresa did admit that she was wrong and apologise for her error in judgment, something that clearly not everyone can do. Taranee returns home at midnight to face her mother again.
It's midnight, Taranee.
I know, Mom. And I'm really sorry. I made some mistakes. I should never have snuck around behind your back. I should have brought Nigel here so that you could see what a good guy he really is.
I realize something too, honey. Sentencing felons isn't the best training for dealing with one of the good guys, like my daughter. But don't expect me to ever stop wanting to protect you, Taranee Cook. I'm your mother, and it's a lifetime appointment.
I can live with that. So, Nigel?
2 conditions. 1, your next date is dinner, here.
And 2?
You march upstairs and take a shower, young lady. You reek!
Taranee realises that by sneaking around behind her mother's back, she wasn't giving her any reason to trust her or Nigel. All she was really doing was making it seem like Nigel really was a bad guy, that he was making Taranee break the rules to be with him. Instead, Taranee realises that she should have tried to show Teresa that Nigel is a good person. Teresa realises that by being a hard ass, all she did was push Taranee away and force her to sneak around, which ultimately put her in danger, the exact opposite of what she was trying to achieve. All she'd been doing the entire time was trying to protect Taranee, to keep her safe, keep her from getting into trouble. Instead, she caused the very thing she was trying to prevent. Taranee also finally accepts that her mother's attitude doesn't come from a place of hate or judgment, but from love, from a mother's desire to protect her daughter. The episode ends with Teresa agreeing that Nigel can come round for dinner, and her telling Taranee to go and take a shower because she still stinks of fish. 3 episodes later, Nigel is back, and this time he's getting involved in Sheffield Institute's Battle of the Bands. He signs Rec 55 up, and later we see Will and Taranee hanging out in Matt's garage watching their boyfriends play. Because are you even a real band if you don't have lovesick girls watching you? I mean, okay, to be fair, Will is kind of a different type of sick at this point, but that's for the Matt and Will video. Taranee seems to realise this herself as she comments to Will,
Oh, we look like groupies. Yeah, groupies with bad taste.
Later we see Taranee hanging around the stage with Nigel.
I can't find Matt anywhere. What if he doesn't show?
Then Rec is wrecked.
And at the end of the episode, with Matt back from hell, Rec 55 take to the stage, and in the audience we see Taranee vibing.
Go, Nigel!
Nigel is back in the next episodes. 2 episodes in a row. We love that for him. That said, it's not exactly a good episode for the Taranee fans. The episode kicks off with a new student arriving at Heatherfield, a senior named Stacy, and when Nigel sees her...
Babe.
Irma, are you really in any position to be territorial?
Excuse me.
I don't know. Are you?
Oh, you are too sweet to wait in line. Make way! Make way!
Nigel?
What's with your boy?
He's getting in touch with his inner jerk.
Babe, is this freshman making you serve yourself?
Yeah, so not so great. Don't really have anything to add to that other than just yikes. Anyway, so it turns out that Stacy is actually Nerissa, because of course she is. Everyone is Nerissa, except Serena. Serena isn't Nerissa, but everyone else is Nerissa. Even I'm Nerissa. Surprise! So the boys at school aren't actually falling for Nerissa, it's a spell. Just like in my Will and Matt video, I'm going to try and overlook the sheer horror of the fact that this, like, 60-year-old plus woman has cast a spell on teenage boys to fall in love with her, including the ones who are literal children. Rissy, what the fuck? Writers, what the fuck? But Yanlin explains the fact that this is a spell to the girls.
Dollars to dim sum. The new girl is a glamoured Nerissa.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Come on. I learned the hard way that just because we don't like someone doesn't mean...
I heard her contestants that pudding you're wearing.
I knew she was Nerissa.
With Matt unenthralled and no longer spying for her, Nerissa's doing the job herself.
So Eric hates my braces and he's in love with Queen Nasty?
It isn't love, just a spell.
Of course! That must be how she hooked Nigel and other guys.
The next day at school, Stacy is still winning all the boys' affections, and Taranee is still not taking it well.
Stacy, from my heart to yours.
He's under a spell. He's under a spell. He's under a spell.
Later we see Nigel as one of Nerissa's zombies at the mall, but that's actually the last we see of him for this episode, so we don't really get any conclusion on how Nigel felt after he woke up from the spell, or how Taranee reacted in the aftermath. You know, did they have a conversation? Did he remember that he'd had a crush on Stacy? How did he explain that to Taranee? Did Taranee yell at him? Did she just sort of accept that, you know, it was a spell and just sort of get over it? Did it cause any lasting tension between the two? But no, we don't get any explanation of that, because of course we don't. Why would the writers actually give Taranee and Nigel any meaningful relationship moments? Why would they do that? That would be crazy. That would be so crazy if they did that. Wouldn't it just be wild if they gave Taranee and Nigel some goddamn substance anyway? The next and final time that we see Nigel is in the very last minute of the very last episode. In a scene showing all of the girls, bar poor single closeted lesbian Irma, spending time with their boyfriends, we see Taranee and Nigel walking along holding hands.
Just tried to find our way back to normal. It pretty much took all winter break.
And that's it. That's all we have of Taranee and Nigel for the entire 52 episodes of the show. Honestly, I think the writers did this entire relationship so dirty. Not only do we never see the characters meet and develop a bond before Taranee suddenly announced that they were a thing, but we barely saw them together as a couple or got any sense of their relationship other than the fact that they like each other and Taranee's mum gets in the way of them being together. Like, in the entire series, the only decent moments we ever get are in K is for Knowledge and that one scene at the start of P is for Protectors. Less than 10 minutes of screen time overall if you put it together. Other than that, it's just comments here and there, or visual moments with no dialogue. I think Taranee and Nigel have the most poorly written relationship on the show, and it really makes me sad because I think they're both great characters and the dynamic between them could work really well if they ever got any time to show it. The idea of the studious girl who wants to follow the rules falling for the boy who wants to break the rules. You know, I think that is a really interesting dynamic, but the way that it's actually written just feels as if Taranee and Nigel's relationship is more of a, honestly, just an instigator for the storyline between Taranee and her mother. Nigel feels more like a plot device than actually a boyfriend. Their relationship barely gets any screen time, and if you look back over this video, you'll realise how much of it I spent talking about Taranee and her mother than I did talking about Taranee and Nigel themselves. Because really, the entire relationship just serves to further the plot of Teresa's inability to trust her daughter, and this kind of growing tension that arises between the two of them. I think it does further Taranee's personality. She gains confidence, she gains a bit of a rebellious streak. She learns, you know, not to have to follow the rules all the time. She becomes willing to break the rules for something that she obviously really wants. And that's good to see. She also learns to stand up to her mother. You know, she doesn't back down. She yells in her mother's face. She's not afraid of her mother's authority. You know, she really does develop from that kind of scared girl that we saw back in season 1. But again, that's not got anything to do with Nigel, really. That's all to do with her and her mother. Nigel sort of is just there to be a catalyst for Taranee's personal development and her development of her relationship with her mother. And obviously I want Taranee to get development, and I'm glad she did. I just kind of feel like there must have been ways to develop this relationship as well. When you look at the length of this video and compare it to my Cornelia and Caleb retrospective, which took around 3 hours in total, you can see the difference in screen time and depth that this relationship received. And obviously you can never give Taranee and Nigel the kind of screen time that Cornelia and Caleb had, because Caleb is a main character in his own right. But we could see with Cornelia and Caleb that they used their relationship to develop their characters, but also gave them a meaningful relationship with each other. They had their own personal character development, but that wasn't to the detriment of the relationship itself. Whereas with Taranee and Nigel, Taranee's character development comes from essentially the bare bones of what we're supposed to take as being a relationship, but we don't really ever see any great substance of. And it's a shame, because their relationship in the comic, up until the Jensen Dance Academy killed it, was actually really sweet. And it's a real shame that we didn't get to do any of that in the show. Who knows, maybe if it continued, season 3 would have like picked up the story with Nigel's brother and stuff, and maybe we would have got some proper development, and maybe we would have got more moments. But unfortunately, we have to take what we got, which was just the 52 episodes that we had, which I think Nigel has something like 6 or 7 of in total. So yeah, it's a shame. I wish I had more to say, but unfortunately I do not, and if I keep talking I'm just going to keep ranting. So yeah, thank you for joining me for going to Taranee and Nigel's relationship timeline in the Witch TV series. I will be making one for Helen and Eric as soon as I can be bothered, and I'll catch you for that, and of course more reboot news as we get it on my future Witch Wednesdays. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye everyone.